Hello, my friend. How are you? I hope you're having an outstanding day and that you're not freezing too bad in the middle of February. Today is an awesome human being day. Of course, it's the Back to Me podcast, and we're going to learn some new things. And I love the celebrity chats that I have because, you've heard me say this before. I always learn something new, and it's so great. So I hope you're getting some things. And if you are, send me a message because I'd love to know what you're learning. And today's awesome human is Martha Lewis. Hello, Martha.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And you are the complete sleep solution, which I think people so underrate sleep. I I toyed with the idea of using the headline, "You can't wait till you're dead to sleep" from that song. What's that song? "I'll sleep when I'm dead," something like that. You will be dead if you don't sleep.
Right.
So, Martha, because of the way my brain works, I'm always super curious about how people got into the thing that they're doing. How did you become a sleep coach? Because that isn't even something I would have ever imagined as a thing until I met you.
I know. Well, me neither until I had my own sleep struggles. So, I mean, I was a great sleeper for all of my life until I was in late pregnancy at age
Oh,
39. And so, yeah, then I started not being able to sleep. And, my midwife said, it's just hormones. They recommended some herbs and just sleep when you can. So, I was pretty miserable, but I figured it would go away after I had my son, and it didn't.
oh
And
no.
yeah, and my once my son was born, he wasn't a good sleeper either. So even by the time he was 3 months old, he was waking up every 2 hours all night long. And
Wow.
yeah, I was like, "What have I done? I had this great life before, and to sleep again." And so I ended up hiring a sleep consultant with which was life changing. Within 4 nights, he was waking up once a night.
Wow.
Yeah. And so then I became a pediatric sleep consultant. And so at this point, my son's sleeping well, but I'm still not sleeping. So, I would be exhausted at night. So I try to go to bed early, and then it would take me forever to fall asleep. And then I wake up in the middle of the night at around 3 or 4 and not be able to go back to sleep till 6 when my son was
Wow.
waking up.
No
So
kidding.
yeah. So this went on for 2 years before I finally, and I tried lots of things during that time, but until I finally figured out what was actually causing it. So
What was it?
I didn't know if you wanted me to spill the beans already. So
Well, I don't know. You could spill as fast as you want, but of course, you said until I figured it out. I'm like, oh my God, what was it? It's like a cliffhanger.
yeah, exactly. Well, I learned about functional lab testing. And so I did some tests. I found out I had a parasite
Oh
that
my gosh.
I probably had for 13 years. I had hormone imbalance. I had too much copper built up. I had food sensitivities. So I had all these underlying health issues going on that I had no idea were there, even though I consider myself a very healthy person and, you know, was a nutritionist, had been in the health and wellness space for a long time. So, yeah, so there can be these imbalances in your body that are affecting your sleep and you don't even know they're there,
I would have had no idea that that could happen.
right?
Like all of those things could affect your sleep. So, and parasites, I mean, it's interesting because you can get them anywhere, right? They're just part of life, really. And I don't know what parasite. I just remember when I came back from India
Mm,
and I
mm,
was sick
mhm.
with a normal India thing. We call it Delhi belly, and I went to the travel medicine hospital clinic, and because it's a student hospital, the students were very excited by how much I had traveled, and they tested all these things, and they found a parasite that I'd picked up in Africa, which had been there just hanging out for
Right.
all that time, and I had no idea. And yeah, you don't know what's there, and you don't know, I guess, what it's going to do to you. But
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, often do you find that people just blame themselves often that they can't sleep?
Yes, I mean, because if you go to your doctor, they either give you a pill or they tell you it's in your head and to go to a therapist. And so there just aren't any other options. So
Right.
yeah, I remember that's what was so frustrating about it, is because you read online what to do, and it's like all the same thing over and over again, right? Like, don't watch screens before bed, exercise every day, don't drink caffeine too late in the day. It's like, yes, I'm doing all of those things. I'm still not sleeping. It's so frustrating.
And the whole sleep hygiene thing
Yeah,
about,
right.
have the same routine so your body knows it's time to go to bed. But yeah, I guess if you have, and how does, so you had parasite, you had too much copper. How does that even, I don't even understand what that is. What is that?
Yeah, so mine was actually probably from birth control.
Oh,
I took birth control for about 13 years. So it's really common in a lot of my, female clients, but you can also get it from drinking water out of copper pipes
oh,
and from swimming in chlorinated pools often. Like, that also has copper. So, and we actually need copper. So it's not always toxic like other heavy metals, but it can build up and become toxic. And I had
okay.
varying levels.
And I wouldn't have thought of it as something that would keep me awake, I guess.
I know, right?
Is that because it blocks your sleep hormones or?
No, it's kind of more indirect than that, but it puts this major stress on your body, and it's something, and it causes a lot of inflammation. Like, that's
Oh,
also how the parasite contributes to not sleeping. And then whenever there's inflammation, your body releases cortisol because it's
right.
anti-inflammatory. So when that's happening in the middle of the night, it's going to wake you up. If it's happening all the time, because you have these hidden health issues, then it's going to keep your body in this constant state of stress. Pretty much.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like not even if you don't have those things, I'm just thinking about people just having stress.
I mean, it's all about stress. And
Right.
we think of stress being mental stress. I mean, that is going to affect sleep, but there can also be these physical stressors, again, that you don't know are there, that your body's having to deal with all the time. And then that makes you not able to deal with stress as well.
Right. Wow. I just find it so interesting. And I mean, I remember being young and people are like, oh, I don't need to sleep. I can go on 4 hours. But I don't know. I was never someone who could go on reduced sleep.
Me neither.
Maybe one night I could go
Yeah.
on a few hours, but I don't know how people do it. And do you think they are in denial? Are they just better at coping with tiredness? Or I
I
don't
mean,
know.
I think some people don't feel it as much. Like, I am very sensitive to not getting enough sleep, and I always have been. Looking back, I can see that now, that I always needed my sleep, and other people don't. But I also think that when you're constantly sleep deprived, it just starts becoming your new norm
Right.
to feel, and so you don't realize how much better you could feel if you
Right.
had more sleep.
You don't know what it feels like to feel good. You
Yeah,
just think that how you feel is good enough,
yeah,
maybe.
yeah.
Yeah, I love sleeping. Oh my gosh, do I love sleeping. And I did have a period of time where I didn't sleep, which is interesting that because all of the solutions that you have mentioned of like diet and inflammation, none of those were the ones that sorted anything out for me. I actually ended up going to a yoga therapist and so I did like a specific yoga sequence every single night before bed to try and probably what it was doing was turning down my nervous system,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
cortisol levels, so that I could go to sleep. So interesting. And I try to convince people all the time that they need sleep, but the besides being tired, you probably have a really good list of things that could be affected by not sleeping.
Oh, yeah.
Oh
I
yeah.
I mean, studies show that getting fewer than 7 hours of sleep a night puts you at increased risk for many different chronic diseases. Like,
Just 7 hours.
yeah.
Wow.
So everything from heart disease, depression, diabetes, Alzheimer's, certain forms of cancer can all be linked to not getting enough sleep. So,
Wow.
so much happens when we sleep, that our body recovers and repairs itself, that it's so important.
Also for your brain too. I mean, I know that your memory is affected if you're not sleeping because you're not giving time for the files to get put away. So-
Exactly. They've done lots of studies on college students and, those who pull all-nighters versus if you actually get sleep and you need sleep to retain that information. So,
Did you ever read the Ariana Huffington book on sleep?
yes.
Yes. Her story was quite eye opening of how she passed out and then she just started looking into sleep and mortality. And it was interesting. If you don't sleep, it will kill you. So you can sleep when you're dead.
Right.
And this is totally off topic, but kind of on topic. I watch a lot of murder mysteries, and there's been a couple lately where they had someone in the show had familial insomnia, where something in the brain didn't allow them to sleep until they died, like they were awake until. I thought, oh my God, what a terrible way to go.
Yeah, it's interesting how many people think they have that though. It's
Really?
very rare. Yeah, I mean, I have a Facebook group, for sleep help with sleep, and people are asking in there, like, "Do I have this?" And I'm like, "You probably don't. It's very rare."
It's because they saw it on TV.
I And you get really freaked out about it. So, like, I also don't want to scare people because the people I'm seeing, I mean, they know they need sleep. They know that they want more sleep, right? They're not like not prioritizing it. They want to get sleep. And so I also, even though yes, literally not sleeping can kill you eventually, I also don't want to freak people out and
No.
think that that you are going to die soon because you aren't sleeping.
No, no. This is someone who never, ever sleeps. Not
Right.
just they can't, they're having trouble sleeping. These
Right.
are people who are awake their whole till, whenever.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have a Facebook group. I guess are people in there just saying, like, is this a mutual non-sleeper support group?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, my goal in there is to educate people about why they aren't sleeping. So some of the things that we've already talked about, because that information isn't, readily out there. And so,
Yeah,
and so I think a lot of people think that, oh, if sleeping pills don't work or they don't want to take sleeping pills and therapy isn't working, then they just have to live with it.
right.
And so I really want people to know that no, there's a reason why you can't sleep. We can find out what it is. We can fix it. This is not something that you have to live with.
And sleeping pills, do you actually, I mean, it makes you unconscious, but do you actually get the quality of sleep that you need on sleeping
No,
pills? No?
no, they sedate you. I mean, you're in the different stages of sleep for different amounts of time than you would be with natural sleep. And you're not getting a lot of that restorative benefits. That's why, they're finding sleeping pills are being linked to things like Alzheimer's
Oh,
because,
wow.
yeah,
I
because you're
had,
not getting that same restorative sleep.
right. I hadn't heard that latest. I mean, I never wanted sleeping pills just because I wanted to be in control of my own mental state, I guess, is a way to describe it. But I know for some people, it's like they feel like that's their only option
Yeah.
because they don't know the rest of it. And for functional nutrition, so do you review people's, is it food sensitivities often, do you find? Or,
Yeah, one of the tests I do, I mean, I'm looking at many different things. So one of the tests looks at gut health. It does have a marker for gluten sensitivity. I don't directly test all the foods anymore because I just found it wasn't that helpful and there can be a lot of false negatives. And so, yes, I'm looking at gut health. I'm looking at hormone balance. I'm looking at neurotransmitters. I'm looking at heavy metals and mineral balance, lots of different things that affect sleep.
and for hormone balance, is that mostly women because of different stages of life or haven't,
It applies to men as well.
does it?
Yeah. A lot of times, especially in men, I'll see what's called estrogen dominance. So, where estrogen is higher than testosterone, or in women where it's higher than progesterone. And so that can lead directly to insomnia. And it's usually that the liver isn't clearing estrogen well. So, yeah, so different hormone imbalances, too much testosterone in men or women can lead to insomnia. low progesterone, low estrogen, both in men and women. So yeah, it applies. Yes, we see women struggle more hormonally, but I do see some of these imbalances in men as well.
I guess that's why when you hit menopause, suddenly your sleep pattern is disrupted
Yeah.
because your hormones are all over the place.
They're
Just,
tanking. Yeah, a lot
yeah,
of times. Yeah.
which is like, come on. Um, and even so, like, I know that. So, how do you solve a hormone problem? Because, like, hormone replacement isn't necessarily an option. Is it what you eat, or how do you kind of manage? There you are.
Yeah. Well,
We had a weird
yeah. So I,
wonkiness. That's okay.
right. I mean, I find hormone imbalance, it can be from liver, like I mentioned, from the liver not operating properly, detoxifying properly. But usually the cause of hormone imbalance is from the body being under stress for a really long time. And again, that can be mental stress, it can be
Right.
physical stress. And so then the body prioritizes making cortisol to deal with that stress. And it takes those resources away from making sex hormones.
Right.
Bodies are always going to prioritize what it sees as survival, which is like dealing with stress, versus reproduction,
Right.
digestion, or the immune system. So, yeah, so cortisol and the sex hormones are all steroid hormones. And so the body will use all those resources to make cortisol, and the sex hormones get depleted over time.
Oh, interesting. So I know, I think that when I'm just, yeah, I get stuck on menopause brain sometimes. I think that stress makes the symptoms of menopause worse. And I
Mm-hmm.
guess that makes sense as to why. Where I never knew why before, I just thought, oh, it's just my imagination.
Right. No, it's not.
So,
Yeah, but
is part of your assistance with people figuring out how to control stress, I guess? Because I
yes,
know you're working one on one with people to help them, you know,
right.
get some sleep.
Yeah. So it's finding out where the stress is coming from.
Right,
So, I help people with the mental stress, but then also use the testing to find the physical stress.
right. And your body doesn't necessarily care what kind of stress it is, I guess.
Exactly. I mean, it's crazy that we've evolved for tens of thousands of years as humans, and our body still doesn't know the difference between being chased by a bear and like worrying about money and how you're going to pay the bills, or, about having a parasite in your body. It's like it still releases the same hormone, still has the same response, no matter what the stressor is.
It has the same answer to every question.
Right. Yeah. This is how we survive.
I guess it's worked for it so far.
Right.
I think we've finally hit a stage in history where that strategy is not really working well for it at this point. But I don't know how long that evolution took us to get to this point. I don't think it's going to switch overnight to suddenly unicorns and rainbows,
No, I
right?
mean, I always think about it like, think how much has changed in only 200 years. Like 200 years ago, there weren't cars, the light bulb wasn't invented.
Yeah.
Our food system, I mean, we could only eat local, organic foods. Like, so much has changed in 200 years, and how much we work and how, busy we are. Like, we have not caught up to to evolving to that yet.
No. We have we've outpaced our adaptation of it, I guess.
Yes.
And as adaptable as we are, adaptations can only carry you so far. I'm just thinking of people who, have jobs that stress them out. You can manage it for a period of time and then something collapses. Or I can remember a friend of mine at one point, I was very stressed out. I had a lot of things going on and something had come up that has just set me over the edge. And he said, well, you were juggling all of your balls and then someone threw you an extra one and you couldn't juggle all of them. So they all fell down. And I said, Ah, crap, you're right. So sometimes you need that person outside of you to see how many balls you're juggling.
Yeah. And it's like we can't expect our bodies to adapt faster to all the stress we're under. We have to adjust all the stress that we're under.
Yeah, and I mean, I've been teaching yoga for 19 years. And what one of the things that I always want people to realize is you have a body, by the way, and it has its own intelligence, and you're not just a brain walking around with, some vehicle. And you have to take care of both of them. And it's not a race to the end zone. We're not, I think sometimes I've had people who just just give me this solution and then I'll just get on with everything the way I want it to be.
Right.
But that's not your best way to operate in the world, right?
Mm-mm.
Do you I saw you have a podcast. I just looked over at my list of things to remember. Your podcast. You have a podcast too. Yay. And what kind of, it's called The Insomnia Fix?
Yes.
Is it on all those podcast places that podcasts are found? And what is it? I mean, obviously it talks about not sleeping, but are you addressing like suggestions, topics, ideas? What kind of things do you talk about?
Yeah, lots of different things. I mean, again, I do a lot of education about why people aren't sleeping. So really diving deeper into each, I have a whole episode about liver function, a whole episode about hormones, a whole episode about the menstrual cycle and how that affects sleep. So different topics like that. I have some episodes that give tips of things you can do today to sleep better, or, how to work on detoxing your liver. So
I'm so checking those out, by the way.
yeah, right. Yeah, they're all pretty short. I keep them 10, 20 minutes at the most because my audience is tired.
Yeah,
and,
no, yeah, so true.
yeah, and I appreciate, yeah, shorter, like straight to the point information. So yeah, so if you are struggling to sleep, that's a good thing to check out. You'll find a lot of information and explanation there.
That's good. Yeah, because I mean, like you said, sometimes you're struggling with someone you don't even know where to start. Like, how do you even, like you said, it's like, where do you turn? Dr. Google? Like, Dr. Google's going to tell you to turn your computer off. Well, no, it might not actually tell you to turn your
Yeah, right.
computer off. Dr. Google. And then it's like, what do you do? So having a resource that you can turn to is so helpful with so many other ideas and options, and such a great segue because you have a download on your website, 5 new ways to sleep better. Did I say that right? Yes. And can you give us like a hint of what's in it?
Yeah, so this is not going to tell you to not watch screens before bed and all the advice you hear everywhere else. And not that that advice isn't important, that's part of it for sure, but it's not going to solve long-term insomnia, as
Right.
many people have realized. So yeah, so this is more looking at things you can do with stress and with stress in your body to sleep better.
Have you found that a lot of it, I was thinking about the gut health one. Do you find the gluten intolerance is quite common in a
Yes,
lot of the insomnia people?
yes.
Wow.
And that doesn't mean that it's forever. It means
Right.
that because I mean, all of my clients have an unhealthy gut. Like some people more than others, for sure, but it's a common denominator. So when the gut gets damaged, when that gut lining, is damaged, then it's going to react to inflammatory foods. And so yeah, some people are going to be gluten sensitive forever, others aren't. It's more temporary, and we can work on restoring gut health so that then they can tolerate those foods.
Right. Yeah. I'm just remembering the very first time I ever went to a naturopath, he told me I was allergic to cats. And I said, that's crazy because I'd had cats my whole life. And he said, well, your body could deal with it then But now it's reached a point where it has too many, like you said, too many other things it's dealing with.
Hmm.
And it's said, I'm not dealing with cats anymore. You've given me all this other stuff. Forget it.
Yeah.
So it's like, damn it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can see where it's like, I know that gluten intolerance has become a big, hot, buzz phrase comedy sketch for people. But it is true that like there's certain times in your life where you can handle some stressors and not others. And if that's one of the main easy ones for your gut to react to, then it's going to pick that one, right? It's the weak link, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Are there any other common ones that you notice?
For foods,
Yeah.
I mean, also dairy, eggs, corn, and soy. Like those are the five most common. Now, I'm not testing for all of those with everyone, but yeah,
The five major food groups.
yeah. And a lot of it is because of how it's, how it's processed these days. So a lot
Right.
of people who are gluten sensitive, they say, I go to Europe and I can tolerate everything there just fine. And that makes sense because in the United States, we have modified, not necessarily like GMO, genetically modified, but we have modified the protein of wheat, of the wheat plant. It's so different than it was 50 years ago.
Right.
So it has a bigger protein, which irritates the gut. It becomes more allergenic. And then it's also, unless it's organic, it's sprayed with glyphosate, which is, there's some theories that people are actually um, reacting to the glyphosate and not the actual wheat.
Oh,
So it's just partly, it's more of that, like how things are processed. And you think of dairy as pasteurized, homogenized, like it's different than it used to be when you drank it right after it came out of the cow.
right. I know there is a bit of a trend to, and I don't know what the laws are there, but I think here you can buy a portion of a cow so that you're legally out to get the raw milk instead of the processed milk.
Yeah,
It's like this weird
we have
hoop
the same
jumping.
law. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Every state is different.
Yeah, exactly. Or, it's so funny you see people going up to this van and buying stuff out of the back of the van like, like it's some kind of criminals. It's milk.
Exactly. Yeah,
Oh my goodness. And I wouldn't have thought of eggs though. What have we done to eggs? Or is it what we're doing to the chickens?
yeah. It's more what we're doing to the chickens,
Poor old chickens.
right?
So you want your chickens running around outside, I guess?
Yeah, and eating good feed. Like a lot of the feed they're eating is genetically modified corn and other things.
Oh,
So
right.
yeah,
Oh, we just can't win, can we?
yeah, you can. It's just society doesn't make it easy.
Right, right.
You definitely have to make an effort to be healthy. And I feel like that's really what I'm teaching people is how can you be healthy in this day and age?
Which is a skill, like it's a important skill. I think people don't realize how different it feels when you feel better.
Right.
And that's a hard thing to describe to someone. It's like trying to describe water to a fish or something. It's like if you feel if your body is healthy and operating correctly, you're going to feel great. And it's like, well, I feel fine now. But but do you really?
Yeah.
you know? And I mean, sleep, obviously, if you're tired, you know that you're tired. And I guess the people you mentioned it, the people who are coming to you already know that they're tired.
Yeah.
So we need to get the people who don't know they're tired to go and talk to you.
Yeah.
Is there so is it a standard that everybody does need at least 7? Are there people who don't need less, or do they just think they don't need less?
Well, recently there was discovered the short sleeper gene.
Oh,
Yes, where less than 1% of the population may have this gene that means they don't need 7 hours to, be healthy and not develop these diseases from not sleeping. But I think I read somewhere like 99% of people who think they have this gene actually don't. So
right. Don't assume you have it.
Yes, exactly. It's like you probably don't have fatal insomnia either.
Yeah.
It's
So
very
you're not one of the people who never needs to sleep, and you're not one of the
right.
people who will die from not sleeping.
Right.
I think I think part of the probably what it is that we get this into our head is I I just think of that TV show 24. It's like or all of these TV shows where everybody's so epic and nobody bothers to sleep, but then they can jump into a gun battle and it's like that's not real.
Right. At least you couldn't keep that up for very long.
No, and you shouldn't use that as your measuring stick of a good life. It's like, yes, I can be tired and still be cranky enough to go out and battle all the bad guys. No, you just have your regular life, and that's perfect because I would rather have a real regular life than a Hollywood life,
Right.
Hollywood movie life.
Yeah.
There's always drama, drama, drama on, which is, I guess, why we watch it.
I know, right? Yeah, but I prefer not to have that in my life as well.
Exactly. Have you, this is a weird other, I have one more thing I have to ask you because I heard at one point about a friend of mine whose brother was trying this weird experiment where he would like stay awake for 4 hours and then sleep, I think, for two, and then he'd be awake for four. He was doing this weird, like short awake times and short sleep times. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, I've heard of it. And I think it comes from, it's believed that evolutionary wise, we used to have more of this diurnal rhythm where
Right.
people go to bed really early and then they'd be awake for a couple hours in the middle of the night and then go back to sleep. Um, so, yeah, there's some evidence that that's how we used to sleep. And so maybe waking up in the night is normal. I mean, I think because most people can sleep an average of 8 hours a night fully, like we have evolved out of that. And I also think that not everyone used to sleep that way. I think that there were people, there's always been probably early birds and night owls, and that really benefited society that some people went to bed really early and then woke up early and they were kind of the watch people
Right?
early,
That
and
makes
then people,
sense.
yeah, went to bed late. And so it's like this protective mechanism of keeping everyone safe in
So
society.
somebody was always up and about.
Yeah.
I always thought, well, people woke up in the middle of the night because it was freezing cold and they had to put another log on the fire.
Well,
It's not because they wanted to.
yeah,
I was
exactly.
just thinking about the times I've been at the cottage in the winter and, you wake up, you're like, brr, the
Yeah.
fire, we got to light the fire.
Right.
So, but it does make sense too from the whole like who's watching over what's going on and whose job is what. So, oh, I like that one too. I'm going to tuck that one away for future reference. So awesome. Yeah, so then I shouldn't feel bad that I'm more of a night owl. That's just
No.
my normal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've stopped trying to conform to society
Yeah.
telling me that I have to be an early bird to get a worm. I don't want worms. I'd rather have granola.
There you go. Exactly.
Awesome. You have so much good information. Oh my gosh. And I guess they can find the download on the 5 ways to sleep better on your website, which is called,
TheCompleteSleepSolution.com.
and don't worry, friends, it's going to be in the show notes if you need to check it out. And your podcast is on all the podcast places, the Insomnia Fix. Go and consume on those days you can't sleep. Go listen to things about sleeping, and maybe you'll drift off. I used to read the Income Tax Act to help me sleep, but
Nice.
right.
Good.
But before you go, I'm always very curious and excited to hear a final word of wisdom you would have for people.
My final word of wisdom is that I think I already said this, but
That's okay.
that if you can't sleep, there is a reason why, and it is fixable. And so you don't have to live with insomnia.
That's awesome. Yes, there is hope. There is hope. There is sleep for you.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Martha.
Yes. Thank you, Heather.
I always learn something new, and it always makes me super excited to meet some new people and learn new things. So I appreciate you coming. Thank you for spending some time with us.
Yes. Thanks. It was fun.
And my friends in podcast land, I hope you're having an outstanding day. If you're tired, I highly recommend naps. That's what I do. And call Martha if you're not sleeping, because seriously, your life will be so much better with a good night's sleep. Take care, my friends. Peace out. We'll see you next time.